Greetings, salutations, and hello. I am Rispwind, and I'm really excited because I just got this updated kind of avatar locomotion stuff going. It just started working, but today I want to talk about the Star Wars Tales of the Underworld series, particularly the Good Trilogy, as I'm dubbing it. That would be the Cad Bane arc, The Good Life, A Good Turn, and One Good Deed. All of the titles include good, and that is why I'm calling it the Good Trilogy. Uh, Hopefully you understand. So, I really wanted to talk about this because I thought this arc was really good. Um, I wasn't a huge fan of the Ventress arc, which is really unfortunate because I enjoyed Dark Disciple and I was really excited to see kind of what they did as a follow-up, and it did not scratch that itch. But the Cad Bane arc, which I thought was generally unnecessary in the lead up to the series, ended up being probably my favorite arc in the Tales of series so far. Um, Probably because it was a self-contained kind of, multi-part story that went on a bit, and I thought it was really good. So we're going to kind of go into it kind of beat by beat, give my thoughts, all of that. So, of course, spoiler warning for those of you who have not watched it, but I would imagine if you're watching this video, you have probably watched it. Uh, so let's just break into it, right? So, a good the Good Life is the first episode of this arc, and it introduces us to two characters, those being Nero and Colby. Colby is, uh, of course, Cad Bane, or will eventually become Cad Bane, I guess is a better way of putting that. Uh, which is kind of fun. I like that. It's a fun way to kind of give a backstory like, oh yeah, he wasn't always this character that we know him as. So, but of course he kept like like Colby, you can kind of see where Cad Bane came from in there, like the C, the B, like you can see where it comes in. But anyways, so that we find out that, you know, Colby and Nero are basically street rats. I think that is the description they're giving. And they are kind of scrounging for leftovers in the trash and all of that, trying to get the crunchies, which is seemingly this kind of fun rock candy-esque stuff. Um, I thought that, was an interesting way to start because, of course, yeah, these are characters who, well, one of which we've met and one we've not met, but we're seeing that we know that one of them ends up being kind of this outlaw bounty hunter. And we're getting the seeds. The seeds are being planted for how he took up that life. He started out with nothing, basically, except for one friend. No possessions, really, no, none of that. And that's where the title, The Good Life, comes in. Um, an individual who is a fellow Juro um, ends up kind of witnessing what Nero and Colby are doing and is like, oh, wow, I think they have potential. So he goes and he's like, he gives them like a coin worth a lot of credits, apparently. Uh, because a shopkeeper is like, how the heck did you get this crap, you know? And, you know, it's it, it's kind of fun because they go in to a store with the coin, um, and they kind of just get boxes and boxes and boxes of these candies and these snacks that they were always scrounging for, trying to get the scraps and leftovers of. But they got to firsthand experience what it's like to live, quote unquote, the good life, which is what this Juro then goes on to say. So, after that, the Juro returns the next morning, or seemingly the next morning. It's, you know. and is like, "You guys are my investment. How, now that you've gotten the taste of the good life, how would you feel about, getting to experience it all the time, just live the good life?" So he kind of gets them in on a, criminal endeavor. They're going to, I'm assuming it's a casino, like or like some sort of gambling operation. There's something in the back room of the uh, snack store that uh, this guy, this Juro, considers a threat to him and his business endeavors, whatever those may be. uh, so after they're presented that proposition, Nero's like, "This isn't a good idea. You know, this isn't a good idea. We shouldn't be doing this." But what does Colby do? He's like, "You're right. We shouldn't, but we shouldn't be doing it for this price. Double it." Which kind of already gives us kind of the difference in their mindsets. Colby is very clearly already kind of getting into this mindset that will ultimately, you know, paint his entire life until he potentially dies at the hands of Boba Fett. I'm not sure. It's not really clear if he survived or not at the end of Book of Boba Fett. I don't know. But anyways, so with that, they basically help distract the guy running that operation while the Juro and his gang basically blow it up. Unfortunately, on the way out, Nero does get captured by the sheriff's department, I guess is the best way to put that. The sheriff's department, and Colby escapes and gets both of their shares, which of course is another little foundational moment. He's like, "Oh wow, if you leave someone behind, you get twice the money." I mean, I don't think he was thinking it like that at the time, but I think in retrospect, that's kind of he, based on the character he became, I have a feeling in retrospect he tried to justify that belief. But that brings us to the next chapter of this saga, a good turn. In this episode, which is very, it, it, I think this is just such a great episode. It's so good. So we get to meet Aaron, um, who is Cad Bane's partner. So Cad Bane has at this point taken on the name Cad Bane and has been kind of working with the Juro for a while now. Um, and that's cool, good stuff. So the Juro, I think Laszlo is his name. I keep just yeah. I think his name is Laszlo. Um, anyways, so Laszlo, the Juro, whatever. He and his gang are going back to the neighborhood where Cad Bane now and Nero had been raised. Um, and he's like, "No, you can't come with me," despite, Cad Bane's protests. He's like, "Dude, I want to go. That's where I grew up. That's where you found me." But he's like, "Nope, nope, nope, nope." And, that's fine. Whatever. That's your decision. But Laszlo and the gang go, and we get a little moment between Cad Bane and Aaron, kind of giving us a little bit of background on their relationship, because we're not going to get a whole lot of it, of course, due to the runtime of these shorts. So, anyways, the gang returns early, and we find out that the lawman had killed Laszlo. Um, and that really sucks. Cad Bane is furious, and so he travels back to the town to find the lawman and get revenge for kind of, his mentor, to avenge him. Uh, back in the town, alongside Aaron, he meets Nero, who has become a deputy now. Again, showing that they have taken very different paths. Um, of course, kind of as evidenced, I kind of alluded to this, but like we saw this being grounded and founded in the previous episode where Nero was like, we shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. And Cad Bane's like, well, we could ask for more money to do it. Um, so we find out Nero is the deputy and that the lawman obviously is his boss. Um, and from there we get, a lovely little encounter where, we get a little, duel, a good old fashioned Western duel. The lawman is shot by Cad Bane and dies. But in the crossfire of all of this, Aaron also gets shot. Now, Aaron is determined to try to make Cad Bane not, then fight Nero, who has taken up the weapon of the lawman. And, Aaron's trying to, like, desperately trying to be like, we have a future, like, we can't do this. But Cad Bane doesn't listen, because he's Cad Bane. So, what happens from here is where things get really interesting. So, Aaron, grabbed Cad Bane's weapon without him realizing and basically forcefully has him surrender. To which Cad Bane gets arrested and all of that. Uh, Now, that is the end of this episode. But there is some stuff that happens in the interim, between this episode and the next one. Now, I'm not entirely sure of the timeline here, but we do know that Cad Bane doesn't yet have the breathing modulators, so it's pre-Clone Wars, I would assume. So, between a good turn and one good deed, Aaron gives birth to Cad Bane's son. As it turns out, she was pregnant with Cad Bane's son, who would eventually be named Isaac, at the time that all of this was going on, but Cad Bane had no clue. Also in this time frame, while Cad Bane is in prison, Aaron and Nero get married. So Cad Bane's best friend married his girlfriend. You know, great stuff. It's kind of funny. Um, so obviously that's going to be an issue. Um, but we also are given a little bit of information, and that is also in this time frame. Um, it seems as though Aaron has passed away. Um, or at least, you know, that's what Nero says. Nero says that she passed away, whatever. So between the episodes, she gives birth to Cad Bane's son. Uh, she marries Nero, and then she dies. Now let's get into one good deed, because this is kind of the big culmination of this storyline. The good trilogy, as I have called it. So, the plot of this one's very simple. Cad Bane kind of gets with some of the old members of Laszlo's gang, and they all travel to that town to essentially get revenge on Nero for all of the stuff that went on. So Cad Bane shows up after having gotten out of prison, and right in front of the basically sheriff's office, I guess, confronts Nero and asks where Aaron is, which is when he finds out that Aaron was dead. He had previously found out that, Nero had married Aaron, but that's kind of what led to him being like, okay, where is she? And you're always like, oh yeah, she died a while back. It's kind of an unfortunate situation. Sorry. So that's unfortunate. To which Bane's like, well, that's the one thing you shouldn't have said, and duel commences. But little Isaac, the son, runs up and is like, Dad, don't, Dad, and Cad Bane's like, well, after I kill you, I'll take care of that little boy the same way you took care of Aaron, which is honestly kind of a sickening line. Like, oh gosh, that was uncomfortable. Um, so, anyways, long story short, Cad Bane ends up killing him. He ends up killing Nero, not the son. To clarify, in a duel, all of that, the son's like, oh my gosh, like crying over, his dying adoptive father. And Cad Bane's looking at the dying Nero and is like, you took everything from me, this is what you get. And Nero's like, I didn't take everything. And then we see in Cad Bane's eyes, and probably one of the best examples in Star Wars of just visual storytelling, like the moment of realization as Cad Bane looks into the eyes of the crying Isaac. He's like, oh crap, that's my son. And then he just walks away. His business is done. And that is the end of the arc. And I think that that's a really cool way to kind of give backstory to Cad Bane. Like, holy cow, that's such a cool backstory. But I really want to talk about why I think this story was told. Uh, so this story's an interesting one because obviously Cad Bane's arc is pretty much complete. It's a bit strange because it's a little bit up in the air if Cad Bane is dead or not, but it is it seems as though Cad Bane is dead at the end of Book of Boba Fett, and there's not really going to be any further storytelling with this character. At least, moving past that point. So this was the perfect opportunity to go back and explore kind of their origins. Uh, in a similar sense, kind of to Black Widow, I think is a good way of putting it. Like we, you know, her character concluded in Avengers Endgame, and then we went back and she got a prequel movie to kind of explain her origins and stuff. So that's kind of what this is, but for Cad Bane. Um, so this it's a little strange, I will say, that we didn't really get the breathing modulator stuff in this. Like, I get that we have a bit of, you know, retcons can happen. I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know. There've there've been a lot of retcons in recent Star Wars. Like, there were some retcons in Andor, and they're not like the biggest deal ever. Like Saw Gerrera, there was the Saw Gerrera retcon, but anyway, it's not a big deal. But I think it's interesting that Filoni and co. Decided that it was important to go back and kind of give this origin for Cad Bane. A character who we got to see again in Book of Boba Fett and Bad Batch, but we've never really known the origin of. Um, and it's very interesting because this story introduced a new character who I guarantee is the entire reason that they made this arc, and that's Isaac, Cad Bane's biological son. There is way, no way that they're not going to bring Isaac back in, the Mandoverse, as people have dubbed it, or something similar. Like, there's no way. Or maybe in like, I don't know, the flippin' post Rise of Skywalker content that's being produced at the moment. Like, why introduce a child who is related to a Filoni character if Filoni's not going to then use the character? Because Filoni loves to use his characters, you know what I mean? And that's not a criticism towards Filoni, it's just the truth. Like, Filoni loves to use his characters. And it would be very strange to introduce this character and not have a reason. So, I mean, you know, hopefully whatever they do with Isaac is cool. It would be really cool if, here's I mean, here's the thing. Like, I have no clue what kind of life Isaac is going to have. He's been orphaned at, a young age, and we have no clue what happens to him after that. I think it would be cool if, he ended up, living a good life. Maybe he becomes a marshal as well, or you know what I mean, like a lawman. Uh, I don't know, follow in his adoptive father's footsteps and not in his biological father's, because, obviously his biological father was a terrible person. I don't know. I think it would be cool though, if they kind of took his character in that direction, because I don't know why else they'd include the character unless they were planning to bring him back. Other than that, talking about that briefly, I don't have a whole lot more to say about this arc specifically. Um, but I do want to talk about kind of Tales in general and my thoughts on that. Um, so far, the Tales miniseries of sorts has had a few stories. I really liked the Barris storyline. It was nice to see some Count Dooku stuff. I thought the Ahsoka arc was kind of pointless. It's all it did was really retcon the Ahsoka novel, so it's rough. But it's I don't know. I enjoy the Tales stories, but I also feel like a lot of these could have been expanded on more. Like the Ventress stuff, which I think is one of the biggest like victims of the kind of Tales runtime. Like so much more could have been done with the Ventress stuff, and that is really unfortunate. Uh, but other than that, I think Tales has been pretty cool. I'd love to see like Tales of the Clones if they're not going to do a Clone Underground show, just kind of give us some background on how Wolf joined up with Rex after Bad Batch, what happened to Cody, and all of that. But other than that, actually, not only would I like Tales of the Clones, I think it would be really cool if we got something with Luke, Leia, and Han between, you know, Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Like some sort of Tales from Wild Space would also be funny. I say that as a joke because that's kind of a here, hold on, let me pull this up. Yeah, Tales from Wild Space is kind of it was a comic series, wasn't it? I think it was. Yeah, from Star Wars Adventures. Yeah, Tales from Wild Space. That would be really fun. Um, just stuff like that. Like there are so many opportunities with this Tales series, but we just keep using like we've done so many of them on characters who we've already seen in the Filoni shows and stuff. Like, let's do something crazy. Like, we've never had Clone Wars style like Luke, Leia, and Han, with the exception of Leia appearing in Rebels. Uh, So that would be really fun. I don't know. I would enjoy that. I don't know if you would enjoy that, but I would. Um, but yeah, I think I'm going to call it there. Um, if you found this video entertaining, please do consider subscribing to my channel. Uh, I talk about random topics that interest me over here. I just like sit down and talk about random topics. This is my first time using this updated avatar. I used to just have like it was two images. This is a lot more dynamic, but I do think I'm a little too bouncy, so I am going to, before anyone comments about that, I am probably going to adjust that a bit to make it a little easier on the eyes. But other than that, please do consider subscribing. I talk about a lot of stuff. I intend to, I should say. And consider leaving a like on the video. It helps me a lot because uh, I'm a small channel. All the support helps, to help my channel go further. With that said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in my next video. Farewell, and have a nice day.